Anyways, it is Freaky Stuff Fridays. I like to do movie reviews, book reviews, talk about other things going on in the world on Fridays. Usually kind of do it unscripted. If you do not want to listen to the podcast, I try to keep up with an overview on blogspot.com under Jenna Carousella, so you can read a quick little synopsis. You don't have to listen to the podcast. Um, Facebook Live, YouTube, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, and I think that's it. If something else comes up, I'll mention it. Anyways, just wanted to um, do a quick little recap of yesterday, really fast. Again, this is Jenna Carousella, that girl. I apologize if I waste your time. And last night or yesterday, we talked a little bit about. Let me get my notes right in front of me. Sorry. I have some interesting things to talk about again today, like always. I think it's interesting. But we talked about the homelessness situation. I talked about happiness and just about your general health. And with the homelessness situation, a lot of people are debating whether or not these people are deserving of it. I forgot to go into more detail about some people just experiencing loss of income, loss of job, and then thus resulting in loss of home. So another person are people who are victim to the crisis. Things we don't often think about, but there's ordinary people that have fallen on hard times and get caught up in force circumstances. There's lots of reasons why people aren't living in residential homes. I live in a state where there's a lot of that happening and for varying reasons. So the debate isn't whether or not they deserve housing and protection. It's I just think we should just jump ahead of it and go ahead and address the problem. And also, if you want to hear more of that in detail, tune in to yesterday's podcast. Um, so I hope you'll go back there and check it out. Let me see what else I wanted to bring up. Just general health and happiness. The Constitution says the right to pursue happiness, and a lot of people think that the goal is to be happy, and the goal is whatever you want it to be. And once you achieve that goal or working through your goal, that's often when the happiness comes. And then I also talked about um, finding a person who you guys have the mutual agreement of we're not expecting each other to make one another happy. That's not what the objective is. It's to find someone that you can work with in order to pursue goals together, and then through your working together, you cultivate the happy feelings, the romance, the love, all of that stuff. It's happening when you coexist with a person that you love and find happiness in yourself. But definitely healing, you need to be addressing problems and fixing things, and being able to cope and be okay in all circumstances. And ultimately, through healthy choices, your body's being well nourished and cared for, as well as your mind. So, in the process, you become generally, I guess, a happier person. You feel happier, you have more happy experiences and happy encounters, and the people around you are also generally a lot happier. So, that was just a recap from yesterday. So, let me go ahead and do the little side note. Talk about today. All right, so like always, I do my movie review. I rewatched Get Out today. Actually, did watch it because I forgot how violent this movie is. I don't know if anyone's a fan of Quentin Tarantino. He did an interview with a woman, and she's just like, Tarantino, why all the violence? And she's just like, because it's so much fun, Jan. And I just, if you weren't prepared for it, I actually forgot the level of I don't, it's appropriate and it's not like ridiculous and over the top to the point where like, okay, that's some overkill. No, it was definitely appropriate, but I just didn't expect it to be. Yeah, that's not even the main point of the movie. So that's just a little disclaimer. If you haven't seen Get Out yet, that has a bit of violence if you're not prepared for it. But a short story. I'm not going to read you the short story, but I'm going to tell you what it's about. They're growing up talking about what they're going to be when they grow up. So the first treat, his objective is to be a treasure chest, and he wants to carry or hold the world's most precious jewels. And yeah, that's his dream. And then the next tree wants to be turned into a fierce sailing ship, a big boat, and sail, the seas and carry some of like the world's greatest kings or royalty. And then the last tree does not want to get cut down. This tree wants up at her, and then they'll think of heaven. So that's the last trees. Cool. Anyway, so long story short, 3 woodcutters come through, and then they cut. The last one is just turned into a whole bunch of logs and just left in a stockpile. So now the first tree that was turned into a feeding trough one night, is just chilling, feeling all depressed. And a woman and a man come in there, and then baby, and then baby Jesus. And that little tree thought had no purpose, didn't realize. And then the next tree that got turned into a little silly old a little fish. Only it wasn't how much, he did not like being a little fishing boat. But one day the boat is taken out, and there's a crazy storm taking place, and this tree is turned into a boat, fears that it's probably going to break apart and have a shipwreck, and everyone's going to be dead. And then all of a sudden, this one dude just comes out, and he's just like, peace, and then the storm calms down. And then he realizes, oh my goodness, I've been carrying like the king of kings of the entire world. And then I'm sure you can figure out what happens. But the last one, this depressed tree who never wanted to be cut down, just wanted to keep growing, and for everyone to look up at her, and every time I see that tree, I'll look up to the heavens. Well, one day the tree that was cut into pieces of logs was brought out, and then it was fashioned into what you mean a cross. And then there's man who was like, but on Sunday morning when the sun rose and the earth was trembled with joy beneath her, the third tree knew that God's love had changed everything. It made the first tree beautiful, it made the second tree strong, and every time people thought of the third tree, they would think of God. There you go. So you should definitely read this in more detail if you have children, share. But it's just one of those simple things. Like, we have all these dreams and aspirations, and sometimes we think our lives are terrible, cut and molded and carved and pruned and all these things. Some things are painful, the transition, the growth process, whatever you want to call it. But it's ultimately designed for a greater good, a greater purpose, a greater cause. And if we just kind of let go of some of our dreams and desires, we would realize that we could be carrying the world's greatest treasure, or carrying the world's, most powerful king. We're obviously, if you are a follower of Christ, possessed with his Holy Spirit, his perfect indwelling self, becomes a part of you. And that to me is so amazing and so humbling. And in that simple little short story, I hope the message was clearly or more easily conveyed to you about how much value and worth you have, even if you don't really quite realize it or understand it. You are truly a vessel, and highly, highly favored, with high value, like amazing worth. Like, you don't even understand how valuable you are to God, the Creator. So that's my push. Definitely hope you guys will appreciate that story. So with that, after my push on that wonderful, cute little story, let me talk about the movie Get Out. Okay, so let's go to It's Freaky Stuff Fridays. And I thought this movie would be appropriate because there's a good place to harbor some secrets. So, Get Out. And the movie has a little bit of, it's very appropriate to go with the characters a little bit more. Was exceptional. They really conveyed the complexities of the characters really well. So I appreciate how they really pulled you in, and you really got into the headspace of these people and not like, whoa, these people are creepy. But it's also very, very well, the impression that they genuinely had a good professional working relationship, and that everyone clearly had a very clear vision of what they were doing with the film. So with that regard, the first layer of the movie, let's not even talk about race, because we could spend a good while talking about. Sorry, I'm trying to find a specific note so I can share something with you guys. All the papers get mixed up. So, sorry about that. Okay, so with the race issue, my big thing is The main character is a black male, and then his love interest is a white woman, and they are going to her parents' house very first time he's being introduced to the family, and they did not know that he was black, but it's not a problem at all, not offended. Their family is very, very open and supported President Obama. So race is not an issue at all. And they get along, everything, of course, everything starts up really innocent. It's a psychological thriller, a little bit of gore and suspense, of course, closer to the end. Um, a little bit, definitely a head trip. That's what it's designed to do, to get into your head and to convey, and B, I don't want to spoil the movie, but B, more importantly, um, there are so many different layers to something, to reading a book. The author may not have a specific intention. To him, it could be writing something, and then the reader can interpret so many different things. That can be said with music and movies. So I have not done too much research on what the writer and director had intended for this film. This is just coming off, initial response. And actually, I've seen this movie about 3 times, but this is my third impression seeing it. And it's still, again, worth sharing and bringing up and sharing again. You can take a lot of themes from it. So, again, I cannot speak for the original intent of the writer and director. All I can say is, from my taking, um, there is two huge themes. One would be why, because in the movie there's a character who says, black is in fashion, so why is there what can be perceived in the film an attack specifically targeting black men or people of color? Why are they specifically being targeted and used? My other side of seeing it, it's not really about race. The black man is pretty much a caricature or a complete encompassment of the entire, um, pretty much just, he is representing mankind in general. Every type of creed, color, whatever. It's just a representation of mankind. And it's a simple them versus us, elite versus poor, working class versus ruling class. It's because they can versus because you have no choice. That's kind of how I interpret the relationship with the boyfriend meeting the girlfriend's parents, and then the parents and their crazy secrets that they have in their home, you know. So that's the gist of it. I feel it's more of trying to relay what some things that could happen and what actually takes place. We can profile, we can make assumptions and say, oh, this is actually happening this way and this is what's going on. I think they're trying to say something. Like, I really think they're trying to tell me something. And a lot of it is so hard to actually believe is that we're capable of being at, or some of these things are achievable. That's where it's kind of like, what is really going on? Because as they reveal more of the evils in the world about the advancements of technology, as we keep unearthing things in the history books in the Bible, talking about not doing certain things and us not understanding why we shouldn't doing certain things like splicing stuff and um, yeah, it's to look at things at a cellular molecular level and what we're actually putting into ourselves and the connections that we build with other people and the importance of really genuinely getting the mental, your psyche, you know examined and understood, because as we realize with 2020 and now, there's so many things out there in the world. I don't want to claim it, and I don't encourage other people to do it, but we just know that it's the reality. Being immersed in the spiritual world, essentially, there's so much going on that it's easy for you to get caught up. I'm talking through like advertisement trying to convince you to buy something, the government threatening you with fear tactics, religious groups trying to recruit and let you know what's happening in the world. There's a lot of pull and manipulation and strategies, and a lot of it's good. but a lot of it's bad as well. So you need a lot of discernment. So when I bring up movies like this, again, it's called Get Out. One of the reasons why I'm constantly here talking and here on the podcast, and Facebook, and YouTube to convey these messages is I kind of have the same message. It's like you really need to get unplugged to some of these things. There are some things where or some areas in people's lives where I'm like, this movie it's a wake up call to you that you need to your head, get your trauma figured out, get treatment, find a therapist, information in. And if there's someone else who's going to be leeching off of you, there's someone else who's going to be stealing resources from you, and your energy, your strength, your attributes, whatever, someone's going to be profiting and benefiting off of your existence. And if you don't pick up and listen, you can get caught up very, very easily. So I think this movie does a great job at addressing some things like that. But again, there's so many layers to these things. There's so much you can take out from it. So many themes. I've barely scratched the tip of the surface with this film. It is a little bit more about that I remember it, and the language not pretty language. So if you don't like bad words, um, don't think it's for little kids. Not probably not kids. Um, but as a parent, I think you should definitely check it out and maybe help your children, um, or think about it as they're going. Definitely monitor who they're dating. Definitely monitor the family relationships, and seriously look into. I don't want to bring out Fiddler on the Roof again, but I just so happen, no kidding, to have found my playbill from back when I was in high school. It says Fiddler on the Roof. To my streamers on YouTube and Facebook, there, Jenna Kurosawa. This was March 24th through the 27th, 2004. Which is really neat. At LA Auditorium. Ooh. So, and just to show you, so no one believes me that I was on this. Let me block out some people's names for privacy reasons. And then I'll put my name just so you can see it. Everyone can see it. All right. Actually, it's probably going to be backwards anyway, so it doesn't really matter, but yeah. Let's see it. It's going to be backwards, but you can kind of see it. Good times. I'm sure someone can flip it over and figure it out how it looks. But a lot of fun. Fiddler on the Roof. I don't know how people feel about arranged marriages. There are so many different ways to look at it, so many different variables. Most times people have a negative connotation and think that, okay, you have no choice at all and you're going to be forced into it, and that's some people, that's how they do it. And there's others where it's like, let's have a conversation and talk about it. And then there's some places where it's like you can kind of get to know the person a little bit, but you don't really have any relationship with them at all until your wedding day. And I think that's probably a good way to start things. So sorry, I have a little tangent there, but the movies Get Out, great film. Jordan Peele, his associate his last name is Key. So Key and Peele. I don't know. I'm sure you've seen their stuff. So Get Out, totally check it out. And with that, let me go ahead and transition. Um, as we know, as we know, the holiday season is pretty much upon us. And with all the leaves changing and talking about getting stronger family values and family, and how much do we really know about the history of where we live. For some reason, I am a huge sucker for, those old houses. Just, I don't know if I could, live in an old house of homes and how people used to live. It is really interesting to me. So I know with a lot of holiday traditions, especially with and harvest seasons and harvest fest, um, I was just thinking, like, as we were preparing for it, trying to get our minds and everything focused. One year had hosted like an overnight stay at some kind of museum, one of the old homes or buildings in our area, and like this year. Um, but something like that would be really fun to go take tours or go check out a local museum. everyone likes to do the Harvest Fest and hay rides and stuff like that. I decided it's kind of neat to check out the history, um, and also just to really appreciate the opportunities that we have in the country. Because yesterday I had mentioned happiness and the right to pursue happiness, and truly understanding what it means for you to be at peace, to be in a place of contentment, and to actually feel happy. How does that look for you? And what are some things into that? So I think that's where I'll leave it today. It's been a fun privilege and honor to talk with you a little bit. Um, yes, sometimes in life we're going to be trying to come up here with all of our plans and we get cut down and then we get molded into something else, but we still are of high value and worth, especially in our identity in Christ. The movie Get Out, there's a lot of things we can talk about race. Um, you know what? I think I will touch on it a little bit, and then I will go into more depth in the blog review that I'll write about the race issues. So one of the concerns, and I'm glad that they actually brought the the relationship between the main character and his mother, and what happened to her, and that I think is a huge contributing factor to part of the crisis that's going on in our country, especially people of color. Um, so once I do the blog, there'll be more in detail with the race. But again, I think this is really encouraging us to get a little bit unplugged and to live a little bit more simply, living off the land. And with that, the mental health improves our physical health. That's where I'm going to leave it today. Need to catch up on some research as always. I'm not sure if I've ever shared on my podcast or any of my streams, but I've been doing kind of like a 12-year experimental study coping treatments. Nothing crazy. I'm talking about going back to just basic medicinal things, utilizing things like chocolate, utilizing things like beer or a glass of wine, things like that, and how they used to just treat things and how we kind of overdose ourselves. I've brought up before a book called Forces of Habit, Drugs, the Making of the Modern World. So that one is I use that as a reference to kind of understand what was done in history and what are we doing today. Can we learn anything from what they used to do? And should we challenge some things from Big Pharma? Can we live off the grid without the help? So gatherings and observations. Would love to get in dialogue with someone back and forth about their experiences as well of how they cope with things and what treatments work. So, with that, actually, kind of important. Speaking of that, I'm still checking this out. I haven't only been on there once, but it's called intherooms.com. I was referred to it to check it out to rooms.com. I'm still new. I haven't finished my profile, but if anyone wants to meet some new people in the community, if you want to find sobriety or need support or accountability coaches or someone to talk to, need a place to go other than Facebook, might be helpful. So, so whenever you're consuming this, let me see. Sorry. Trying to make sure the internet connection is still going. I haven't lost any of my streams. Yes. Oh boy. Yep. Like I said, I did not get the last segment in there. Oh well, I'll really record it. That's why I'm constantly switching things up. We'll figure it out. With that though, I hope you do have a good evening, morning, or day whenever you're consuming this content. And take care, and we will be in touch. And with that, have a nice night, YouTube. I'm glad that I was able to stream with you. Take care.